What's going on, my exotic family? Welcome back to another video. I know it's been a while. I've been busy. Most of you know I had a baby recently, so I've been dealing with that. But everybody here in the reptile room is still good. So I wanted to drop this video to kind of give you guys not necessarily an update, but let you guys know I'm still here. I'm still doing the reptile thing. Just been a little busy and everything. Excuse the pin in my head. I was actually just working on some sketches and everything for some upgrades in here. We got a few of the snakes outgrowing current enclosures, so I wanted to work on that, get that together. So that's what I'm working on. But today's video, I kind of wanted to basically go over the pros and the cons of snake racks, and then also my personal. This video altogether will, I guess, be my own personal opinion, but for the most part, it's going to be pros and cons based off of my experiences. So I don't want anybody to watch this video and think they have to feel how I feel, or I'm wrong or whatever. I'm not trying to be right or wrong. This is solely off of my experience, based on my experience with the rack. So without further ado, no need for a long introduction. We'll go ahead and jump right to the video. Alright everybody, now welcome back to the video. Like I said, I'm just going to go over some of the pros and cons of owning a rack. This here is my rack. It is a DIY rack, so I built it myself. I built it 2 summers ago. It's a 5-slot rack, and it houses 28 quart tubs. So the snakes in these tubs are not too big. I have Bane, Zeus, and Baku are all in here. And Baku won't be in the rack too much longer. He is pretty much outgrown the rack. But like I said, he has an upgrade coming really soon. He actually may be the next video or so where I go ahead and get him upgraded. But with that being said, this is the rack. You can only really see 4 of the slots, but it's a 5-slot rack, I promise. 5th slot is on the bottom. There's nothing in it currently, not even a tub, because there's only 4 snakes that I need in here right now. So I built it myself. It was very easy to build, and I covered all of that in actually a previous video that I did about 10 months ago, the snake rack review video. So I'm not going to get into that too much. But I did get everything from Home Depot. I used a 8x4 1/2-inch piece of PVC for the entire thing, and I constructed it based off of a YouTube video that I had seen prior. So that's how I built my rack. I have heat tape running through, and then it's running has a VE200 Vivarium Electronics thermostat on there that works pretty well. Not a lot of heat, so I didn't need something super crazy. But as I do these upgrades, I will be looking into a more advanced thermostat. So we'll actually start with the cons. Most people start with the pros and then the cons. I'm going to start with the cons, and that way we can end this video on a positive note. So the first con is they're not efficient for large snakes. And there are some tubs out there that can house large snakes. But for me, you guys know my big boa, Luther, he's 6.5 foot. I just don't see me housing him in a tub. Yes, he may fit, but I do feel like some of the custom enclosures will suit him better. Even though he's a bigger boa, they still do deserve some enrichment. So they do climb, they do like to move around, they do like to stretch out. And I'm not bashing anybody who houses their larger snakes in tubs. Just for me personally, I just don't think that a large boa will get much enrichment out of that. Now for breeding purposes, that's a little different. Obviously they're just breeding. However, for me, I'm not breeding. Literally all of my snakes are pets, so I do want to achieve that maximum enclosure for these guys, so they can have that full life expectancy, but also you get more of that natural behavior when your snake is housed properly. So con number 2, I kind of rolled into con number 1, which is the lack of enrichment. But con number 3, racks, to be honest, no matter how you dress them up, they are not aesthetically pleasing. You're literally just looking at, a white rack with slots in it, whether it's white, brown, gray. It will never look as fancy as any of your custom enclosures that you can have built or built yourself. So that's another con to it. It's not huge, but it's definitely something that is noted. Me here, I have a whole entire reptile room. Some people keep their reptiles, out on display. So obviously, a rack may not cut it. So 4, they have a lot less space as far as the snakes. They don't, like I said, they don't get to move around much because they're stuck in a plastic box. So there's not a lot of stretching out unless the snake is, suitable size for that particular tub. They're not going to have an abundance of space in the tub. And then lastly, on the cons, if you have multiple species of snakes that require different heating requirements, then you are going to either have to make a new rack, or you are going to have a separate channel of heat runoff, particularly for that snake, because whether they need it higher or lower, they obviously can't be housed with the other snakes because the requirements are a little different. So now let's move on to the pros. First pro would be it is great for establishing new reptiles, which is what made me want to build one. I got majority of my snakes as hatchlings, and I just didn't see myself having a bunch of glass tanks. So the rack for me was the way to go. It was efficient, it's cheap, it gave the snake that security. I have 100% feeding success in these, 100% shedding success, and it's great with holding humidity in the tub. And I don't know if you can see, most of my tubs actually have some type of enrichment in there, at least to the best that I could do in the tub. But they are great for establishing new reptiles because it gives them that security. It's a tight space and it's nice and dark. There's no lighting. It's simply just heat and whatever is in the enclosure. So that is definitely something that I like about the rack. Another thing, obviously, is it holds multiple snakes. Your custom enclosures can't do that unless you have a divider. I'm definitely against cohabbing unless it's for breeding purposes. However, a rack houses multiple snakes and it does not take up an abundance of space in your room or wherever you're keeping it. Right, moving on to the next. So for me, I would say a rack is cheap. Now, I do want to clarify, if you are building one yourself, it's definitely going to be way cheaper than going out and buying one. Will it be lower quality? Yes, it may be. However, you can still build one that is just as efficient and gets the job done as your big name brands. I just didn't want to spend that type of money, so I went out and built one myself, and 2 years later, here we are. I have no issues, no problems. Pretty much almost all of my snakes have started off in the rack, besides Luther, obviously, because I got him full size, and the king snake because he's way too small, because he can definitely get out. So he is in a 18 by 18 Exoterra. He's growing now, so he will be in the rack here shortly. And another thing, probably lastly, that I like is, I think I mentioned before, when it comes to holding humidity, for your higher humidity snakes, my green tree python, and my Brazilian rainbow boa, it did great for holding humidity for those guys. Those guys like the humidity a little higher, so I had to make sure that the humidity was on point for those guys. If not, then just like any other snake, you'll have trouble shedding. So they're great for holding temperatures and humidity. I've never had an issue with temperature or humidity in this rack. So that is pretty much it as far as pros and cons in the rack. That is it as far as pros and cons on the rack. I'm sure there are many more, but once again, these are the ones that caught my attention as far as my experience. I do, like I said, recommend getting a snake rack if you're growing out multiple snakes. However, my personal opinion, I do not feel like racks should be the permanent housing for any snake. No matter how big, how small, they all need, you know, an upgraded enclosure where they can actually have room to roam around, because these animals are in captivity. They don't know the wild. However, it is our job to make sure that they have the best, you know, enclosures and care that we can possibly give them. And I just don't think a box with the heating element on the bottom with minimal enrichment is cutting it. Once again, I'm not bashing anyone. As you can see, I have my own rack here. But once again, my goal is to upgrade all of my enclosures out of the rack. So with that being said, I'm proud to be back making videos. I appreciate you guys for watching. Make sure you hit that notification bell, hit that subscribe button, and as usual, stay exotic.